Hey everybody, it's Matrix here. Just wanted to make a little video putting together some things I've found and discovered about VIFFing, or vectoring in forward flight. It's a little Harrier specific gimmick. Can be quite useful, can also not be useful if not employed correctly. So I just want to make a little DCS video, my first DCS video, about the employment of VIFF and how it's completely non-existent in DCS. So I think I'm going to start off by reading a little bit of an excerpt from the Harrier GR3 Tactics Manual. This is not a restricted manual, and it can be found in the National Archives. Just want to get that out of the way before I go. So when it comes to VIFF, this is what it says. In general, VIFF is not an end in itself, but it is used to augment basic maneuvers. The nozzle lever should be used as a flight control with smooth movements. In most engagements, the left hand should spend as much time on the nozzle lever as on the throttle, with excursions to the flap switch and hopefully a phase change trigger. All VIFF will cause a loss of energy, so should be used carefully and sparingly. As the nozzles are lowered, the aircraft will pitch up, and this can be used as an advantage under certain circumstances. So what that says right there is when you lower the nozzles, the aircraft should pitch up, and it should be a pretty instantaneous pitch up nonetheless. So we're going to test out even the most basic fundamental part of VIFF, is that you should get a characteristic pitch up. So as you can see there on the right hand side, just above the MFD, there's a little degree sign with the arrow that tells you your nozzle angle. And you can watch here where I have an untrimmed aircraft, and I drop the nozzles. There's no change in AOA, and there's basically no change in pitch. And what the nozzle should do is create an instantaneous pitch up that also leads to a higher AOA, but this doesn't happen at all. This second section here is also one of the most basic fundamental aspects of VIFF, is that you can use it as like an extreme air brake. You can use it to slow down incredibly fast by pointing the nozzles forward and literally using reverse thrust while in forward flight. And this next section, I think, kind of just explains it perfectly, so I'll just let you watch the clip.
Okay, I'm about to bring the nozzles in, and you watch how quickly we decelerate, okay?
Okay.
Just make sure you're ready.
Yeah, ready. Oh! Bloody hell!
He just goes shooting out in front of us.
It's like flying into a giant marshmallow or something, isn't it?
Bye, chaps.
That's remarkable. So what did our airspeed drop to then?
Dropped to about 250 from 400.
Good God, so now you...
So now this next little section that I have can basically be referred to as the VIFF Bible. It is a technical report from the Royal Aircraft Establishment, and it is called The Effect of In-Flight Thrust Vectoring on the Characteristics of the Harrier GR Mark III Aircraft in a Combat Configuration. So this technical report was put together so that they could evaluate and test what kind of tactical advantages you could get out of vectored thrust. And so it basically contains everything you need to know, down to how many G's you slow down by with each and every single nozzle angle, at every single Mach number with every single flap angle. It'll tell you everything you want to know. So I've kind of used that in comparison with DCS. I know there will be some differences because it isn't the exact same Harrier, but as demonstrated in the clip before, the deceleration effects basically are all still there. So you'll have to forgive me for this section, but I didn't quite have a proper stopwatch timer, so I just had to use one that counts backwards. But as you can see, it takes about 11 seconds to decelerate from 400 knots to 300 knots in this here. And if you refer to the clip from earlier, it took them 5 seconds to drop to just 250 knots. So just for the proper mathematical terminology for all of just so we get it right. So this right here shows you AX for an AOA of 0. So AX for this one is talking about accelerations basically forward or backwards. How fast are you slowing down or how fast are you accelerating? For a fan speed of just 95.5%, so that could be either combat thrust or just max thrust for the Harrier GR3. So it's pretty great. So there you can see that with a nozzle angle of all the way forward, braking stop, at about 0.65 Mach, that's pretty close to 400 knots, you should start slowing down in almost negative 2G. That's insanely fast. So, mathematically speaking, 1G is equivalent to approximately 19 knots a second every second. So, at just 1G of deceleration while flying in a straight line, the Harrier should lose 19 knots every second. So when it's 2G, it's 38 knots a second. So we're a little bit in between there. So you could call it about 30 knots a second. So if a plane were to decelerate from 400 knots to 300 knots at 30 knots a second, it would only take about 3 seconds to slow down, not 11. So this next section here, it gets a little bit more complicated. So this is a little excerpt from the AV-8C and AV-8A NATOPS flight manual, and it just goes over a little bit of what's actually happening when you drop the nozzles and to some of the good parts that you can get to doing it. So some people might say that, oh, the Harrier 2 is a different wing and it doesn't work, but you can in fact go look at the Harrier 2 or the AV-8B manual. It has the exact same section in it, but I'm not going to be putting it up here because I don't want to get in trouble like I have before for the Harrier 2 manual because it's not good to use like this. So this one's completely fine. I'm not going to get in trouble for using this one. So we're going to get to it right here. The aerodynamic benefit effect of nozzle vectoring is threefold. First, there is an induced increase in trailing edge downwash angle, influencing airflow forward of the leading edge. In turn, this reduces local AOA on the leading edge, below that sensed on the AOA probe. So in DCS, the AOA probe just reads AOA regardless, more or less. So basically what all this ends up coming down to is that at low airspeeds, 300 knots to 120 knots, with like 40 degrees of nozzle angle, you should be able to sit at 40 degrees AOA and you won't even be experiencing buffet or wing rock or anything. It can just sit at extremely high AOA, provided that you just fly it normally like you would in the VSTOL regime. As it says right here, the aircraft can be maneuvered at low speed with high AOA and will display the same characteristics as in VSTOL flight. So as long as you control your side slip, you can just point this thing around at 300 knots, 40 degrees AOA, just pull it wherever you want. So I tried to conduct this in DCS, and the thing can't even get to 40 degrees AOA without completely losing control. It will buffet normally at like the 17 to 18 degrees AOA range, and then it will start experiencing the wing rock at the 25 part where it starts having uncommanded roll. And above 25, there's no hope in having any kind of control of it. But right here, it clearly says you should be able to get to 40 degrees AOA and stay in complete control of the jet. So we're back to the Royal Aircraft Establishment report. This is also from that same technical report that they did about the effects of in-flight thrust vectoring. So what this here tells you is, there we go again with the AX down at the bottom, and that tells you your deceleration when you thrust vector. So how fast you're going backwards or forwards, basically, in G. And then the AZ is your normal acceleration. So how many G is the aircraft pulling around the corner? So this test is for 0.75 Mach, AOA of 5 degrees with mid-flap. So this is basically just like a sustained level turn, and then if you yoink the nozzles to these degrees listed here, how much G do you get extra? So you can follow that black line. The dotted line was for like predicted tests, where the black line is then what they actually achieved in testing. So if you look at the little numbers on there, those are different nozzle angles, so you can see for 15, 30, and 45. So at 45 degrees of nozzle angle, if you snatch 45 degrees, you should increase G without increasing AOA or anything by about 1 to 1.1 G. So when I tested this in DCS under the same conditions, roughly, it was like about 6 degrees AOA for the same Mach, for the same G, but you only gain about 0.1 to 0.2 G, so it's hardly anything. But the deceleration is roughly accurate. So you get all of the loss of energy without any of the increase in performance in DCS, which is quite nice. So this is like a very basic overview of what doesn't happen in DCS when you try and vector in forward flight. I'm not really sure. I remember seeing something a really long time ago when the Harrier first came out on DCS. Somebody tried to make a comparative video for like turn rates and stuff, but ultimately in DCS, it does not decelerate the plane like it's supposed to. It does not increase the AOA and controllability like it's supposed to. It does not increase the G like it's supposed to. All it does is lose energy for literally no reason. So I really don't understand some people who try and say that it's modeled fairly accurately. It's not even close. They can think that if they like, but now you can sit and watch me make a really rusty vertical landing on top of a roof over there. I haven't played DCS in a while, but I mean, good enough. I didn't crash. See you next time.